Do you have, do you have an opening
come on,
statement?
what do I call them? Not the only thing I did want to say this is, as we were just up here joking, long weekend, very tired, very fun. But pretty cool thing is, there's a lot of people that put in, let's call it a lot of work, from starting with the area scouts to whatever our, the analytics department, to our personnel execs passing it along, to coaching staff, the training staff, or, getting medical, our kind of auxiliary consultants doing different research there's a lot, just an unbelievable amount of work that goes into, really, I don't know how many we ended up with, 10 shots at the basket. So it's pretty fascinating when you sit there and you look at that board when it starts. Then you get here to round 7 and it's like, okay, we're down to 10 guys. But a lot of really cool work, a lot of cool collaboration goes into these 10 young men here, getting their chance to end their dream and start their reality.
After last year's draft, other than the volume of it, people in retrospect sort of noted that it seemed like a patient draft, sort of a methodical draft. There was best player and need that were kind of matched at different points. Was this a similar strategy after seeing the success that class had last year?
Probably very similar. I do think I think we go in and we write down, let's call it, I guess we call it dire needs. One of them was kicker. So, and we didn't really handle that till the 6th. So there is an element of strategy, monitoring that situation, how many you have draftable, when are they going, knowing what teams might be really probable to draft a kicker. So there's always a list of needs. Maybe there's medium needs, maybe there's less than medium needs, and you try to, at that point, let the board say, wow, we still may need that position, but there's a better player, at least subjectively at that moment in mind, and you somewhat follow your board, follow your needs, and that's the puzzle.
You guys had said, no one player is going to replace Aaron, but 4 defensive linemen, including your first 2 picks, it seems like you guys made a concentrated effort to try and fill that need.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, to be able to get 2 guys on the edge, 2 guys inside that we feel like can affect the game in a positive way, that was something that we had identified. And obviously, Aaron creates a big void. You're never going to ask somebody to replace that void he created, but you can do that by the unit. And so to be able to get Jared, to be able to get Brennan on the edges, the way that they play the game, then to be able to add Braden and Tyler, we were really excited about that. And I think what's great about all 10 of the players that we took, there's a consistent makeup. And, fortunately, doing this for the 8th time together, I think this was as smooth of a process. Now, the work begins now, because I don't think a lot of people thought last year at this time that the draft was as good as it was. But we felt good about it. But really it's about, all right, now that we get these guys that we've identified, how do we develop? How do these guys do their role in developing and becoming a part of this team? And so feel really good to be able to get 5 defensive players, to be able to get 4 offensive players, to address the kicking situation where you already have one in-house, to be able to allow that to be a competition. It's a tremendous amount of credit to Les and his group. That's the one thing. The amount of work that goes into this and the ownership that you could feel from him, from his group, and then the ability to collaborate with our coaches. It's really cool where when you feel like you're getting better at, how do we want to do things and what does it look like to onboard the right types of people, and feel like we went 10 for 10 and now the work just starts. So, it's all projections. But there was a resume and a body of work that all 10 of these players had, that there was a consensus, there was a consistent and really unanimous good vibes and feel from both his group, from our coaching staff, and ultimately, our organization. And, I'm really excited to get these guys. And then there's a bunch of college free agents that we'll add that, as you guys know, we've had some guys that have really contributed from that arena as well. And so our football team got more competitive. And how these guys, fit into what we're trying to do when you're playing 11 guys at a time on offense, defense, and special teams. That's going to be key and critical for, building the foundations the right way.
Of those 4 guys that you added on the defensive front, they're all 23, 24. What was the mindset in terms of targeting guys who are a little bit older at that position?
I think probably based on COVID, and extra year of eligibility. You're seeing some players. I don't know when that little bubble's going to run out where there's some older players. Now, with that being said, I do think we don't necessarily sit and go, oh, we need young. The neat thing is when you do get someone that's somewhat old that's played 4 or 5 years. Aaron Donald was one of those players, coming out of Pitt. Those go to the Senior Bowl. There's an element of probably a little bit more maturity, experience, wisdom that definitely more than likely helps them navigate and have a chance to be a tad more successful their rookie year. So but I think it all comes about on tape, but I think that there's an element of we're kind of in that COVID extra year of eligibility bubble where you're seeing some players stay in college football longer. And I'm sure now with the advent of being able to be paid in college, I know there's players that had a chance to come out last year and elected to stay because there was an element of some guaranteed money on the table that they felt like they would take. So it'll be interesting to see how ages go over these next few years.
You were here and drafted when you drafted, Greg Zerline and Hecker and Jay. You had that group, a young group that developed together and was productive for a long time. What was the thinking with getting Cardi and kind of teaming him with?
That's always been an element of a vision, and give Chase Blackburn, our special teams coach, credit because we've probably aged him about 4 to 6 years and some gray hair, trying to get that thing worked out. And we were thinking about it last year. Could we add 3? Because we did do that the year we did Hecker and Zerline. And we had McQuaid was there the year before, but they all kind of started the same and had a long run. So we've had that blueprint here, easier said than done, and we probably had to live through a little bit of stormy weather last year with the kicking position. But the neat thing is there was a few kickers that we all liked. I think a lot of the NFL teams liked. I think they all got drafted. And the good thing is we kind of waited, and there was less teams that needed kickers or that were willing to draft them. And so it enabled us to, all of us probably, to get a quality kicker here in the little bit later portion of day 3.
Asking because you might be a little more familiar with Jordan, the receiver out of Texas. Sometimes when we interview these guys after they get drafted and they're talking about stuff in your offense that kind of, Puka did the same thing, it kind of clicked. You could tell he had a vision for himself within the structure of what you already do. Like, what stands out about players who can verbalize your own offense like that to you? And I assume you are familiar with him.
Definitely. I'm a homer.
Yeah, so I guess, at what point when you did start watching him more for
What's interesting with Jordan, for anybody who didn't know tape, my stepson, my daughter's at Texas too, but he was going through the recruiting process, not this year, the year before. Went to a few Texas games, and at that point they didn't have A.D. Mitchell, their tight end who was drafted this year, was just starting. So Jordan was a big part of their offense. Poor Xavier, Worthy would, haul ass down the field, and it's like, man, we can't even get him the ball. So Whittington did a lot of underneath stuff. So you just came to respect, like, wow, that's a good football player. Then they pretty much go get a lot of 5 stars this year. You had to take a step back. The neat thing is from the moment you walk in that building, and I think they had 11 players drafted this year. It's probably the second most in Michigan. But that's a very talented thing that Sark's got going. But there was one thing that everyone said, you know what, Jordan's our heartbeat. He was one of those guys and Sark does a nice job. Sean knows this on offense. He knew all 3 positions, was willing to be the 3rd, the 4th, play all the core on special teams. So just kind of one of those kind of key core guys that you draft with a vision and more than likely has a role here.
To go back to the defensive front for just a second, when you guys were talking about 2 defensive linemen and 2 edge rushers, was there anything that in evaluating last year's pass rush that, looking at that, you guys want different traits that you guys wanted or looked for as you sought out prospects and evaluated prospects this year?
I think the biggest thing is if you can affect the quarterback and be physical at the line of scrimmage, it's going to make your 2nd and 3rd levels of the defense better just by those guys playing well. And so, they like I said, done a great job identifying some players that we feel like could move our, personnel, but the overall whole defensively in the right direction. And these guys got to come in and earn it. Just because where you're drafted, that doesn't mean anything. Everything is going to be earned with our team. We obviously have a tremendous amount of confidence and love their body of work and their resume and who they are as people for us to, make those selections. But now, you come in, we want to be able to earn it and be a part of this culture, do the things that are necessary for us to build this the right way. And every single year is like that. You say it, but, as you're fortunate enough to be able to accumulate some experience, that really means a lot. Just because we finished last year with a little bit of momentum, you got to start all over and got to be able to do it. You want to use the confidence that a lot of the guys that played and earn that the right way, but also know, hey, man, the work works. We're going to put it in every single day. But I did think that was a big part of it. And really, when you look at it, Stu, new defensive coordinator, we'll do some similar things, but I think there's going to be some different things that we can explore of how to really be able to push the envelope and do some things that are in alignment with where we feel like there's a lot of improvement and things that we can build off of, not exclusive to defense, but on offense and in the kicking game as well.
What are the benefits of having a group of rookies at the same position or at the same area of the field going through the rookie process together?
I think just the comfort. I think when you look at last year, there was a lot of guys that were going through the same things. And when you have that relatability and you guys are going through something together, there's a natural bond that occurs. There's a consistent passion for the game. But when you're navigating things for the first time and somebody can understand what you're really going through and they're with it, they're in it with you, I think that's really beneficial. There was a special rapport that existed between our rookie class last year just based on the numbers. We've obviously got 10 guys. We'll add some college free agents, but I think it's about the atmosphere, the environment. But I think we have a better idea of identifying our types of players. When you look at now doing this, like we said, for the 8th time, all right, let's look back. There's so many good things, and then there's always going to be things that we can learn from and, just be better equipped to try to be able to, hit those spots and bet on the people. And I think that's exactly what you guys saw reflected in the 10 selections that we made this last weekend.
Last year you had a high volume of rookies draft picks, but also undrafted, and a lot of those guys had to start or play significant roles. In a year when maybe that won't be the case as much, what does a rookie have to do to stand out and make an impact on the team?
Yeah, it's a really good question. A lot of that was by necessity, but I think what was good about last year, Sarah, was having an open mind. Naturally, as coaches, sometimes you're inclined to just go with what's comfortable. The guys that you trust, sometimes there's not necessarily the patience to onboard guys the right way and give them a chance to fully develop. And some of those guys had opportunities that, weren't normally afforded based on previous years. And so I think if anything, it's an open mind, making sure that we create competitive situations and opportunities for guys to allow their traits and characteristics to come to life and for us to ultimately be able to identify, all right, who are the best players that can make us the best team that we're capable of being in different personnel groupings and different situations. And so, but I think it's consistency. I think it's showing up, doing the right things, being able to respond the right way when things don't go your way, and us as coaches being open-minded about pouring into these guys the right way and trying to help them reach and realize their highest potential.
When you say that you feel like you have a better grasp on picking your guys, do you feel like that's a result of last year's draft class? Like, can you kind of extrapolate on that?
I would say this. I think it's a result of the experience that we've accumulated together, the consistency amongst a lot of key members of our group, and then being able to honestly assess and reflect on, okay, man, there's been a lot of really good things that have gone on, and then some of the things that maybe didn't work out the way that we wanted. What can we take away from it, and how can we learn? And we'll be sitting here next year, hopefully, saying the same thing about what we learned, but. I think, you always talk about the process, but, I give these guys a ton of credit about really being able to put a model together that gives us gradable ways of saying, all right, is this our kind of guy? What is their makeup? What are the, the things that where the film guides you? And then what are the other things that you can try to at least say, how do we put a tangible way of measuring, this is what we want and this is what we're looking for, and these are the types of guys that fit in that mold and in kind of that arena, but I'll let you kind of add to that, Les, but I think this year was really cool in that regard.
You've said a lot. We're fortunate here. We've got a lot of continuity, especially with Sean and I, my staff. We've lost a lot of coaches at times, so sometimes Sean may say continuity. What are you talking about?
I understand.
But we've discussed continuity can either lead to probably being stale, or can we somehow turn that into an advantage, an edge? And the advantage or edge, whether we do it or not, is we do have a lot of data of what we've tried to do, what's worked, what hasn't, and now trying to apply some of that. Time will tell, but we'll continue trying to, somehow be intentional about making our continuity an edge and not stale.
As the play caller, are Corum and Whittington guys that you could envision if they do the work with, that you can plug in immediately into roles in that offense?
Yeah, I think that's what you hope. When you select these guys, there's a vision. They've got to be able to earn that. But we talked about Blake a little bit last night. Jordan asked about Jordan Whittington, and he was one of the guys that you received so many texts with. I got a chance to go to Texas to kind of speak a couple weeks ago before the league meetings, and Steve Sarkisian and I have a relationship, and this is a guy that they love. He's played in all three spots. He's a core special teams guy. He's made of all the right types of things. I mean, you look at it even when they're trying to go have that game-winning drive against UW, he's making a big slot fade catch down the sideline that puts them in a chance to be able to score and try to be able to advance to a national championship. But to make up the things that he's overcome, to be in the positions that he's in, the way that he's affected and influenced positive change with the people that he's been around, we're very excited. And he's got some versatility. It sounds like a really smart player that can do a lot of different things, and that's really valuable for us. But that would be the hope, Gary. But, until we get these guys in here and really start working with them, it's hard for me to say. And we got great competition at all those spots.
Gary, you sound concerned about that running back position, learning this playbook.
No, it sounds to me, based on his resume, that you've got a player that you would envision could come in with Kyron and Ronnie and.
I can't say this, Gary, I was
Blake's
joking,
stud.
but we do take, to come in as a rookie, come in as any player and absorb what Sean and his group are teaching and then go execute it. It does take, special, probably, hey, just mom, dad, God gave you a pretty good brain to be able to process some info and apply it real quickly on the grass, and also a care factor to continue evolving, because these guys evolve. And so we put a lot of emphasis in on how that player, for the most part, has a chance to come in and absorb a playbook as a rookie and then go apply it at speeds that they're used to playing, not letting it bog them down.
And I think the challenge always for us too is how do we do that, but how are we becoming better teachers, where you make the information digestible, that you take out the thinking and allow guys to be able to go play and react fast. But there was a prerequisite in terms of all of these guys have shown a feel for the game. There's instincts and there's certain things that you can evaluate on film, and then also with the vetting, the background, the ability to sit down and talk, to their coaches, or even just talk ball with some of our deep dives with the scouts. And, every single one of these guys was checking the boxes. And, maybe Cardi can talk a little ball with us as well. Hopefully it's just kicking extra points, though.
Stanford engineer, you know what I mean? Seems like there's a really good, lucrative career on the other side of
What
this
the hell's he
kicking
thinking?
thing. Now, go ahead then.
Sure.
Kobe Turner's been asking for the phone numbers of all the new guys
Yep.
to immediately get a hold of them and welcome them in, and
Yep.
kind of. I'm assuming that does not surprise you, but
Not at all.
what's your take on that?
I think he's got such a great way about himself, Jordan, that, he's just one of those guys that you want him to be himself, and he's just so naturally inclined to want to be a positive influence and to welcome guys with open arms. And I think that's a reflection of how he felt when he came in from the Aaron Donalds and from some of the other veterans. But what a special human. He's one of the guys that by just being himself is going to be a big-time player, a big-time influence. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's voted a captain by his teammates, because he's got such a refreshing security in himself and who he is, and he trusts the work, and he's like a lot of our guys in terms of a really special human being. But when I did hear that, even how quickly he reached out to Jared first, that didn't surprise me, but you don't take for granted how lucky you are to work with people like him.
You've mentioned a couple times he's very much uniquely himself, and he stays that way. But in a building where there's a bunch of alphas, strong personalities, and obviously he's one of them, but
Yep.
strong personalities and very strong personalities coming in as well. How do you continue to foster that personality into a growth space instead of maybe letting it be smothered or covered up?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the important thing is we want to be able to have an atmosphere and environment where people can authentically be themselves, but also try to guide them in terms of the values and the principles that we feel like are in alignment, and how you reflect humility, how you reflect an energy and accountability, how you build relationships, how you reflect the mental toughness. There's some consistent things, but it's unique to each person's personality. And I've heard it said. I heard Shaka Smart talk about culture, how we act, interact, and respond in all that we do. And I want guys to do that authentically with themselves, but also you want to make sure that you're praising the types of things that we feel like are in alignment with that atmosphere. And Kobe does so many of those things naturally. And it's not about you look at the difference between he and Aaron. Two great leaders in their own right, but very different personalities. And I think the best way that you can model authentic leadership is by modeling the way. The words are one thing, but like, how do you move every single day? What does it look like? I always say I see better than I hear, and he epitomizes that. There's a lot of guys that I could really talk about, but I want them to be themselves. But I think the beauty is in the differences in their personalities, and however it's reflected, where you can try to help be able to guide them, but also allow them to be able to flourish into who they are as they're continuing to become the men that they are right now.
Kobe had the right number for Jared, and you guys did not.
We gave him the right number.
All right, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.